What is going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and today we're going to be releasing our second video of the day looking at the 2021 NFL offseason, and this video will be focusing on the four teams of the NFC North. Without further ado, we will jump right in. We'll start by discussing the Chicago Bears. So they had a relatively speaking quiet offseason. There were some big moves though. So they did draft a pair of players in the first 3 rounds. The first one was, of course, quarterback Justin Fields, whom they picked with the 11th overall selection. And then they drafted offensive tackle Tevin Jenkins at 39. Those are two very good players that they got on good value. Fields was considered arguably, possibly the second best player in the draft, second best quarterback in the draft. So getting him at 11 is very good. Jenkins was considered a late first round pick. So getting him in the early mid second, good value. Always good to, help out your offense. Now, they did add some key players in free agency as well. They signed quarterback Andy Dalton, running back Damian Williams. They re-signed wide receiver Allen Robinson. They did sign wide receiver Marquise Goodwin. So basically, they just kind of revamped their skill position a little bit. Damian Williams will be a backup. Andy Dalton's going to be the temporary starter until Justin Fields is ready to go. Hopefully, we see Fields sooner rather than later. Robinson was a key piece to re-sign Goodwin. Good, speedy receiver. He is on the older side, though. They did also sign offensive tackle Jermaine Ifedi, who they did actually re-sign, I should have said. They also re-signed defensive end Mario Edwards Jr., linebacker Alec Ogletree. So it's going to be a very similar defense to what they had last year. And then they re-signed their two special teams players in kicker Cairo Santos and punter Pat O'Donnell. Both are solid. O'Donnell's one of the top punters in the league. Cairo Santos, he at least solved their kicking woes for a bit. Now, they did lose some players as well. They did allow quarterback Mitch Trubisky to walk as a free agent. A very disappointing tenure for him in Chicago. 4 years, didn't do much of anything. He did get the Nickelodeon's Most Valuable Player award, so you got to give him that. Now, they also got rid of wide receiver Anthony Miller, who they actually traded away this offseason. Like I said, revamping their skill positions. They also allowed a pair of offensive tackles to leave in Charles Leno and Bobby Massey. And then defensive tackle Brent Urban left the team, as well as a pair of corners in Kyle Fuller and Buster Skrine. Fuller was the more surprising player that they let walk. Skrine wasn't that great. So Chicago, all in all, pretty quiet offseason. Next, we have the Detroit Lions, who had a busy draft, first 3 rounds of the draft. Now, with the 7th overall pick, they were able to grab offensive tackle Penei Sewell, who was arguably the second best, if not the best player in the draft. Of course, Trevor Lawrence being the other one. They also got defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike, and they got him at 41, and defensive tackle Aleem McNeil at 72. Basically they saw that they needed help on the defensive line, so they got a pair of bodies to help there. They also drafted cornerback Ifitu Milifonwu, and they got him with the 101st pick. He is a brother of a former NFL player who probably is still active, but he's not on a team right now. So, pair of players, basically 4 players that you hope can help you out, building through the line and then getting a corner. Now, they were busy this offseason. They did trade for quarterback Jared Goff, and then they did sign some more skill players in running back Jamal Williams, wide receiver Tyrell Williams, and tight end Darren Fells. Those are 3 solid players. None of them are going to be superstars in Detroit, but they will at least get you yards. They'll keep some games close. And then they also, on the defensive side of the ball, signed defensive end Romeo Okwara and defensive lineman Michael Brockers, who they acquired in a trade for basically nothing. Romeo, he's a starter for them. I don't know if he will be for much longer. Brockers, he's typically a D tackle, but he can play D end. They actually have him listed as a starting defensive end, so always good. Detroit needs all the help they can get at times. Now, they did trade away quarterback Matthew Stafford, who was, of course, the first overall pick back in 2009, so they did get Goff and a bunch of draft picks in return. It's a downgrade for sure, but we'll see. They also allowed quarterback Chase Daniel to walk, and then they got rid of a pair of running backs in Kerryon Johnson and Adrian Peterson. It's safe to say Johnson was a bust for them. He was a second-round pick, I believe, in 2018. Adrian Peterson, he was at the end of his career anyway. They just took a 1-year flyer on him. They also allowed wide receivers Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones to walk. They both got bigger contracts than Detroit was willing to pay, especially since they're rebuilding. Now, they also lost defensive end Everson Griffin, cornerback Desmond Trufant, and kicker Matt Prater. None of those guys will be really missed all that much by Detroit fans. They were all older. Then we have the Green Bay Packers. Now, the one thing I do want to get out of the way Aaron Rodgers, he did sign a contract to stay for another couple years, but in his contract, it's alleged that there's language that allows him to leave after the 2021 season. So we'll have to see what happens with that. This is going to be a situation that's well worth monitoring, but for the time being, he is a Green Bay Packer. Now, in the draft, they drafted cornerback Eric Stokes with the 29th overall selection, and then they got center Josh Myers at 62 and wide receiver Amari Rodgers at 85. So basically, they spent two picks to help out Rodgers a little bit. They got him a receiver and a center. It remains to be seen if they actually end up doing much with Aaron Rodgers, though. Now, on the bigger side, they were able to re-sign running back Aaron Jones. He got a decent contract. They also reacquired wide receiver Randall Cobb via trade from Houston. So those two moves probably made Aaron Rodgers happy, specifically the Cobb one. They did also re-sign tight end Mercedes Lewis. Now, they also signed offensive tackle Dennis Kelly, who's been around the league for a while. And they re-signed cornerback Kevin King. Not the best in coverage, but he can make tackles, so there's that. They did lose some players, but no major players. They did lose quarterback Tim Boyle, who's been the backup for a few years, and is from the state of Connecticut. Just got to put that out there. Running back Jamal Williams left the team as well. He went to Detroit. Center Corey Linsley left the team as well, and linebacker Christian Kirksey left the team. So Green Bay, they're not in the best position because they still don't know what's going on with Rodgers, but they still have a chance. They still should be one of the better teams in the NFC at the minimum. Now, lastly, we have the Minnesota Vikings, who had a busy offseason. So, in the draft, they drafted offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw with the 23rd overall pick. Then they got their hopeful quarterback of the future, possibly for the 2022 season, in Kellen Mond at 66. They were able to draft linebacker Chaz Surratt at 78, guard Wyatt Davis at 86, and with the 90th pick, they would pick a defensive end named Patrick Jones II. Now, they did add some players as well. Now, they added wide receiver Dede Westbrook, and they re-signed wide receiver Chad Beebe. Now, Beebe, of course, is more known for his dad being Don Beebe. So, yeah, but still, they also added some defensive tackles in Dalvin Tomlinson and Sheldon Richardson, guys who should help them compete today rather than tomorrow. They also signed linebacker Nick Vigil, cornerback Bashad Breeland, cornerback Patrick Peterson, and safety Xavier Woods. Essentially, Minnesota saw that their secondary was a bit of weakness, so they tried to revamp it. Patrick Peterson in particular is an interesting signing. He is on the older side. He's not the player he was back in 2012, 2015, but he's still a good player nonetheless. Now, they did lose some players as well. The first one that we're going to look at is quarterback Sean Mannion. He was a solid backup quarterback, but nothing spectacular. Running back Mike Boone left the team as well. He stepped up in 2019 after both Dalvin Cook and the backup Alexander Madison went down, so he definitely auditioned for a decent contract from Denver this offseason. Kyle Rudolph, the tight end, left the team as well. It was a bit of a disappointing end to a somewhat solid tenure in Minnesota. Offensive tackle Riley Reiff also left the team, and then linebacker Eric Wilson left, as well as cornerback Mike Hughes, who was traded away, safety Anthony Harris, and kicker Dan Bailey. Bailey was a disappointing addition. He had high hopes, but it didn't work out, unfortunately. Harris, Wilson, these guys just signed one-year deals in Philly, so we'll have to see what happens. Now, the 2020 season saw Green Bay win this division with a 13-3 record. Chicago made the playoffs with an 8-8 record, finishing second in this division. Minnesota went 7-9, and Detroit went 5-11. Both teams missed the playoffs. How do I have the 2021 season going? Green Bay should run away with this division again. They're built to win today. They want to keep Aaron Rodgers around. He is the reigning MVP, so you want to keep him happy. You want him to be in Green Bay for the rest of the foreseeable future. You don't want him to leave your team. Minnesota, I do have them jumping Chicago this year. I just think Chicago is a bit more, they're going to eventually give Fields a chance, and that's going to hurt them for 2021, but probably help them a bit in 2022 and on. But the real thing is, you got to see that your O-line's actually good and able and capable to protect him, because you don't want to throw him out there and have him get hit time after time. Minnesota, I skipped them for that reason. I was just going to Chicago. Minnesota's got a good veteran team. They have some strong players. They still have Dalvin Cook, who's one of the top running backs in the game, specifically as a north-south runner. So they're going to be competitive. Detroit, they're trying to get a good draft pick this year. You can kind of tell. Jared Goff is kind of in a we have to wait and see what happens with him approach. Hopefully Goff can figure it out and have a solid year. But yeah, that is the NFC North this year. that is what all the moves that they made. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a good rest of your day.